Hi, 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 it's Joey Reynolds in Florida. Does this look like a hurricane? No. Why? Because we're in Fort Lauderdale. That's why it's on the other side. Usually we get slammed. This time it was the rich people over in Naples and my relatives who are very poor. But you know, up there, Naples and Sarasota, tragically, we have we escaped the bullet this time, but we usually get it all the time. You know, I was going to move into Home Depot. We have so much going on here every year, and with fear and weathermen. There's a weather guy I saw on CBS television from New York this morning. He was on the network. He was really good. He looks like a professor. He walks around and he's animated, and he says, "You know, my heart goes out to these people." A human being doing the weather. We got a woman down here that does the weather. Her name is Betty Davis. Nothing to do with the movie star. I mean, tall, thin girl called Betty Davis, you know. And I said, yeah, and I'm Edward G. Robinson, you know, if you go back that far. But, you know, these are days when we have people on television who are amateurs, not that Betty Davis is, but she's a meteorologist, you know. But we have a lot of people in the weather department. There are more people doing weather on television stations now than doing news. Nobody wants to go out and cover a story. We don't have reporters anymore. That's why we live off of gossip and the police blotter. We live off of things that went wrong or are bad or are tragic. Now, television really has too many commercials. That's what's wrong. That's why we don't watch regular TV. They haven't figured it out yet. We'd rather pay to not watch it than to see all of these ridiculous commercials. Like, there's only one Morgan, and Morgan, and Morgan. Come on. You know, these are the guys that you've heard me say before. You know, you have an accident, and you call the lawyer, and the lawyer tells you that you won't have to pay until they collect. So they're making money off of your accident. I don't want anybody enjoying my accident. This is not a good thing to do. Anyway, back to this other thing on the weather. I was on the air during Hurricane Caroline, which was supposed to hit Fort Lauderdale, and it hit Kendall, which is farther down south, way away. But we had the hurricane. It cut off all the electricity, all of the sound and pictures and everything on television. But our station, WQAM, had the only one of the stations that had a generator. So what happened? I was on the air in the morning, doing the morning show with Cheryl Simone, who eventually went to WINS in New York. If you're tracking Cheryl's career, that's Hurricane Cheryl. But Caroline struck us, and while we were on the radio, it was tragic. Of course, they're always tragic. And I got on the air, and I realized that we were getting phone calls, and there was no other television or radio on the air, and we were inundated with it. We lived in that place for 2 days in the studios, and I broke into the there was no food left, so I broke into the vending machines to get food, and no water. So the water that was left was in the toilet. You're not going to drink that unless you're a dog, and I don't think the dog would do it. Now, you know, we had a different kind of a society back then where people cared about each other, and I think we still do, but it's less on the air and less. It's more social than it is on the air. On the air people cared a lot back then, and we were concerned about people. We weren't concerned so much about commercials. We dropped all the commercials, and so you know what we did with the radio station? They gave Channel 10 in Miami the sound, so they could have their experts on the air after we got off the air at 9 o'clock. So at 9 o'clock, WQAM went off the air and we turned the sound over to the TV station. So people who had television sound could listen. You know, that's the tragic thing right now, is they're talking about people in the hurricane zone, but they're not watching TV. There is no TV. There's no sound. There's no picture. There's no electricity. They're not listening to how much you care or how you're going to help them, because they're not there. They can't. You don't have a communication. We do have some still that's pretty good now, which we did not have back then. It's called cell phones. And now that everybody has that and we stream a lot, we can live off of the internet, and that's really cool. So people can get their information. But the older people don't really haven't embraced this the way we have. Or I'm older now, but I mean younger people. So I consider myself to be very childish. so I'm young. But the younger people have embraced the electronics and live this way from birth. We had to learn it, and a lot of the older people retired in Florida, and people came here to flee from the pandemic in New York, and the bad weather up north usually brings them here for a season, but this time they moved down here. We have 100 million people here that never would have thought to live here. I mean, they're not exactly going to Disneyland when you're 85 years old. You might be going to Epcot Center looking for cosmetics and some sort of a ride for older people, which is a luge. You know what the luge is? They have that thing because older people love to ride on the wave, and we love to jump out of airplanes. Not. So what we do in this situation right now is just to help wherever we can, and that's what we're doing. We're helping as a society. We're raising money for food and clothing and all the things that we do in churches and synagogues right now. That's what we do, and public organizations. I noticed that the government, they said that they may shut down because they don't have enough money to run the government. And I thought we were shut down a long time ago. I didn't know we were still open for business the way it's going. But you know where all the money goes? It goes to these senators and congressmen who have lifetime jobs. They get everything that they're supposed to fight for us for. They have retirement plans. They got travel and prestige. They have medical up the nose or any other part. Everybody in the government is very well taken care of. Where we're not taken care of is in the regular people who are not working. Like me, I'm not working right now. I am. This is my job. My job is to report on this little gizmo here about what I think about life itself as I'm on the way out. This is the exit plan that you have, you know. I know there's a lot of people just coming into the business right now, and I help them out because I think it's a great organic thing to do. Also, it's very spiritual. It's nice to help somebody get into the field that's been so good to me. And I'm not ready to retire. I'm not going to retire. Why? Because I can still think and talk and move, and you know, I can be a little bit on the sarcastic side, and I think we need that. You need it a little bit. You need to have, everybody needs to have a little prick in their lives, and believe me, I've become a big one. That doesn't sound right either. So there we go. It's a Reynolds Wrap from Florida during the hurricane's slow movement across the other part of the state. Maybe it'll blow some sense into the governor, but I don't know. Hurricanes don't work that way. And there's no politics now. Oh no. Well, what happened to Mar-a-Lago? Isn't that in the, no, that's on this side. So he's not going to get blown into anything. I think, now see, if the hurricane would have come here, he could blame all the papers that were kept blown away. Say, Trump could say, oh, those papers, they went in the storm. Yeah, well, we lost them. That's what would happen. And, you know, people lie about lies. See, the first lie is a lie. The second lie is entertaining because it's the person getting out of the lie. I like that part. I'm entertained by lies. You can always tell a liar. And they say that dogs, incidentally, now are sensitive to emotion. So your dog knows when you're stressed. You can't do much about it. I always had that. I love that Nipper, the dog on RCA. Did you ever see that? I don't know if you're, years ago they had a little dog next to a speaker. Nipper was the name. It was RCA, the Radio Corporation of America, who owned NBC. And NBC was a television network, first one on. And that little dog was sitting there. And that dog was there. And I always used to say, yes, the dog has wee, small paws, because they used to say wee paws for identification. Long way for that bad joke. It's a Reynolds Wrap.